We're going to get into the idea of administering a supplement with a serious effect or a strong effect, but can also have strong side effects. So my story is just a
cautionary tale.
Cautionary tale to illustrate if you're taking something and you're getting what you want out of it, but you're not going out of your way to test what else it could be doing to you, you could be taking one step forward and then two steps back somewhere else. And that's what happened to me.
Bringing you a reasoned approach to health and fitness. This is the Phi Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Phi Life Podcast. John Barbin here with Brad Pilon. And today I want to talk about the idea of taking a supplement or even a drug, and not tracking the results you're hoping to get with it. Now, in most cases, if it's a prescription drug, your physician already knows what to track, and they're probably giving you guidance on what to track. But when we just kind of do it ourselves with over-the-counter supplements, most people probably aren't thinking in terms of the main effect, like is it even doing what you want it to do? And more importantly, side effect. And some people might be under the false assumption that supplements don't have side effects.
Right.
And I would say the general rule of thumb is if it has a main effect, it has a side effect.
Side effect is just an effect we don't like, right? Like they don't categorize them as they come out. Just everything has, especially a supplement's going to have a myriad of effects. Some we don't like, some we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another rule of thumb is if the main effect, meaning the effect you're hoping for, is significant or strong, it's likely the side effect is also potentially significant and strong.
Right.
If a thing's doing something at a big enough magnitude, then it's probably doing other things at a big enough magnitude. So I have an example here I'm going to share. I was testing high-dose niacin for reducing lipids.
How high was the dose?
2 grams a day. It's a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot. And it's only recommended to be in that range for the express purpose of reducing blood lipids. So various cholesterol, lipoproteins.
Like how many pills roughly would that be?
I have 500 milligram pills,
okay.
so I take four. So
you're
in the morning.
Not gobbling handfuls of pills. What I was getting at, like it's
No, I think you can get 1 gram pills too. So,
Jesus,
anyways, I was just doing it 2 and 2 doses. These are extended release in an effort to reduce the niacin flush. Anyone who's had a niacin flush, it's quite uncomfortable. All the blood vessels in your skin dilate and your skin gets super itchy. It looks super wrinkly for a while.
Bright red, right? Like
you're bright red and you heat up and you kind of feel like you've just had a sunburn.
Yeah.
That doesn't last very long. It might last 20 minutes, but it's really uncomfortable. It's the main side effect that people stop using niacin for.
Right.
Now,
obviously.
It's not pathologic. It's not dangerous. It's just really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's enough to stop people from even taking it. There's really good data to show it will reduce low density lipoproteins. It's one of the only things that will increase high density lipoprotein, the good cholesterol.
Good cholesterol, yeah.
It reduces triglycerides. It kind of just everything you want your lipids to do, niacin will do. And in my
it does it pretty quickly, right? This isn't like over the span of 6 months kind of thing.
It happens pretty quick.
Yeah.
And in my case, I have high Lp(a), like really, really 99th percentile high Lp(a), which is a genetic lipoprotein that you can't diet or fitness your way out of. It's just there. Niacin is the only thing over the counter that can actually reduce it. Oh, and I'm saying niacin over the counter in the United States over the counter. I think everywhere else in the world it's prescription at this dose.
Yeah, I didn't think to check here, but yeah.
Yeah, well, and there's a reason why. We're going to get into that right now. So I was talking to my cardiologist. We worked our way up to 2 grams a day.
So did you sort of slowly build your way up to that?
Yeah, you build up to avoid the niacin flush because it's rough. So I guess as you build up, you can build some tolerance to it. Every now and then I get a flush. It just depends what I've eaten and how long since I've eaten.
And was a flush your only concern, or was there any GI or anything like that?
No GI issues, but it has serious side effects. So this is where we're going to get into the idea of administering a supplement with a serious effect or a strong effect, but can also have strong side effects. So my story is just a cautionary tale to illustrate if you're taking something and you're getting what you want out of it, but you're not going out of your way to test what else it could be doing to you, you could be taking one step forward and then two steps back somewhere else. And that's what happened to me.
Okay.
So I took the niacin. I dosed up from 500 milligrams to 1,000 all the way up to 2 grams. Took about 4 weeks to get there.
Okay.
After about 6 weeks steady state at 2 grams, I did some blood work. And my lipids were fantastic. The Lp(a), I was a hyper responder. Normally, with my cardiologist, our deal was I'm not going to stay on niacin unless I get at least a 50% reduction. I got a 67% reduction.
Oh,
in
wow.
Lp(a),
Wow.
which is wild. That's he's like, you are a hyper responder. We didn't expect to see that, but a couple people will respond that strongly. But also, it raised my liver enzymes, so it's causing a lot of stress on my liver. I'm starting to head in towards the territory of liver damage. So now they were mildly raised, but they were raised. They were out of range. They were triple their original number, so they went from the 20s into the 60s, which is not.
And so your liver enzyme numbers normally were pretty good. This was like
mid 20s, so the low end of normal, which just is a normal healthy liver, I guess.
Gotcha.
I don't smoke, I don't drink, I kind of don't do a whole lot of stuff. We have no reason to expect my liver enzymes to be elevated.
No liver training for you.
No,
Yeah.
and so in this case, they went out of range. Now he said mild, but if they stay there, this is going to be the start. This is going to be liver damage if they stay there too long.
Right.
And the other thing, I'm wearing a glucose monitor as we speak. Niacin at this dose can potentially cause insulin resistance and issues with blood glucose regulation.
Okay.
So I started the glucose monitor, and I did you just check to see where your glucose is at anytime you want throughout the day. And while I was still on the niacin, my glucose regulation was all over the map. And I've used a glucose monitor before, so I know what my standard number should be.
Right.
And I was going up into the 140s 4 and 5 hours after eating and after exercising. There's no reason for it to be at that number.
You just never came back down after a meal.
Well, it was weird. I went up right after eating in the 30 minutes after, which is, you expect to see that.
Yeah.
Then your body releases insulin, and then it regulates down the sugar back to where it belongs. So I had the normal meal increase, then kind of went into a normal glucose state for a while. Then randomly 4 hours after eating, went right back up into the 140s for no reason. And I've never seen that before. So that's odd. That shouldn't be happening. Yeah. At least for me. I have enough baseline data that's never happened before. So all I can think of is the niacin must be doing this, because this is one of its known side effects, is causing insulin resistance.
And you didn't change anything else recently.
No. And that's another thing. I didn't change anything else. I didn't change anything as far as what I ate or how I exercised or anything that should affect glucose regulation. It was clear the one thing that I'm taking a mega dose of must be doing it. Especially
since you also had the elevated liver enzymes, so you're already suspecting niacin.
Right. So that's a good point. So liver enzymes went up. Now blood glucose regulation seems to be off. So I'm catching two major side effects off of this stuff. But the main effect is also great. My lipids and cholesterols were in the best position they've ever been.
Oh, wow.
So I'm getting a good main effect and two pretty bad side effects. So my other strategy now was to try to take a supplement that could correct the liver enzymes.
Right. Okay.
So there's a whole list of things you can try. I started with N-acetylcysteine, commonly just referred to as NAC.
NAC, yeah.
Lasted about a week on that, and that just tore up my gastrointestinal tract.
Really?
It was awful. It was awful. I didn't know that was a main complaint or side effect, and I started reading Reddit threads, and a lot of people I found you either can or can't handle NAC, and you find out pretty fast.
Okay.
And it was brutal. And now I thought I was just eating something off.
So NAC's like the cilantro of supplements, right? Because some people have no problem with it. Yeah, okay.
Whatever it was, I didn't know this. So I was thinking, man, did I eat something off? But every day it was happening. And then I'm like, is it the NAC? Because that's the only thing I've changed. And sure enough, some people, it's utterly intolerable. So stop the N-acetylcysteine. So now I can't do that.
Cysteine is a sulfur-containing amino acid. Right?
Oh yeah, there's sulfur, all right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was, oh God, it was painful. So it took about 3 days to clear, and then finally the GI symptoms went away.
Right.
But now I still have the elevated liver enzymes. The whole point of taking NAC was to deal with the side effects of the liver enzymes. So then I started taking milk thistle. So here we go. Now I'm just adding more things in to cover off the side effects of the first thing.
Right.
And then I did a blood test about a week after the milk thistle, and liver enzymes started coming back down to normal. They were back into the normal range, not all the way back to where they were, but at least in the normal range. Now, some people, some researchers in that field, you know, a lot of biomarkers have a range. So with your liver enzymes, it's like the low 20s to the 40s or whatever. So, but a lot of them prefer you in the lower range because that's even more indicative of more health than being in the upper range.
Right.
So yes, I'm back into quote unquote normal, but not all the way back to where I was.
You're off,
but at least we're
niacin,
what should be
off the NAC, but on milk thistle now. Is that right?
No, at that blood measurement, I still had niacin in me.
Oh, okay. There we go.
So it seems as though something between NAC and milk thistle was helping correct the stress on the liver.
Right.
But that's when I did the glucose measurement. Then I found out. So I found out the liver stuff first. Then I did the glucose measurements. Then I realized it was causing trouble with blood glucose. So then I just immediately stopped the niacin because there's just too many things going wrong here.
Yeah, no.
Because what am I going to do? Start taking lipoic acid or berberine and try to offset the glucose? So now I've got a handful of supplements just to offset the side effects of the first supplement, but those ones all bring their own side effects.
I was just about to say that, but then you're spider webbing out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it can just keep getting worse and worse. So my thought here is I'm clearing out of everything. And now I'm going to talk to my cardiologist and say, is there a way to run this experiment a little bit more elegantly? Now, when I first saw him about this, I was already trying niacin on my own under the instruction of a different physician. So he joined in the sort of the method midway, and it wasn't properly done, let's say it that way. So I'm going to ask him if it makes sense to ramp up starting at 500 milligrams, but have the milk thistle on board already for the liver enzymes.
Okay.
Do a pre-niacin 2 weeks on the blood glucose monitor just to get a baseline. I kind of already know what my baseline is, but let's just do it properly.
So completely washed out of niacin, get the blood glucose monitor going. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Like
so now we know what I look like for 2 weeks on the monitor. Then we start niacin, have the milk thistle on board right out of the gates to deal with any potential issues with the liver enzymes.
Right.
Ramp up from 500 milligrams to 1,000 to 1,500. The other thing is our first test of lipids, I was already at 2 grams.
So you may have gotten the results you wanted at 500, 1,000, right?
Well, in the literature, you can't usually get it that low. But since I'm such a hyper responder, maybe I'll get 80% of the lipid benefit without the side effects at a lower niacin dose. Maybe I don't have to get all the way to 2 grams. So I'm going to ask if it makes sense for us to ramp up, test the liver, test all the blood work, so the liver enzymes, the actual lipids, and glucose at 500, 1,000, 1,500, and see if somewhere in there I get the benefit while minimizing the side effect versus I'm already at 2 grams and let's just see what's happening. So it wasn't really well structured.
Right.
Anyway, so it's probably going to take us 4 or 5 months to get all that done properly, but at least I'll know, and I'll know. And I'm trying to minimize all the stuff I have to take for all of the side effects while catching the main effect. So so that's my story. I just measured this stuff. I was already on it, but what I'm explaining is the way to actually do it properly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening and you want to take something for a supplement, so it's not really under the supervision of a physician per se, but you want to take a supplement for whatever reason. I don't know, berberine for glucose control or something else. Whatever you're taking, hopefully my story is instructive that if it's strong enough and you get a big effect, the effect that you're looking for, it's possible it's causing something else you haven't been thinking to measure. And it's
completely unrelated, right? Like you wouldn't go from you wouldn't go from LP little a to liver enzymes to blood glucose. They're 3 different areas. So if you're interested in one, you wouldn't check the other. So if I went on a testosterone supplement and my testosterone went up, I wouldn't think to check some random other thing not related to testosterone at all. But it could be, there could be an effect there as well. And that's where, it gets tricky.
Right. And so you got to do your research to know where to look for the side effects in the first place.
Right. Which is why, even when you open a bottle of Advil, you have that fold out sheet that has all the possible side effects. So you can kind of correlate something's going on, but we don't have that with supplements per se. Yeah.
Not as well drilled down as pharmaceuticals. So it makes it actually harder for you to figure out where the potential interactions and side effects might be. And there's a lot of resources online. You can more or less find it, but it's even easier if you even know where to look in the first place.
Right.
So I kind of had an inkling that niacin was going to potentially cause liver issues. I sort of already knew that part. Right. And I also kind of knew the part about glucose. It was just one of its obvious things. And the previous physician that I talked to about the niacin was explaining, like, those are the things you have to look at. But those are things you can't really feel. So you can't feel your liver enzymes going up.
Right.
You can't feel your blood glucose changing. Like, even though it sounds like you should, you really can't.
No.
Unless you have a full-on hypoglycemic crash.
But even then, you have people who think they're hypoglycemic, then we measure them, they're not. They're sometimes low blood pressure and sometimes just something else going on. Yeah.
Right. And then from there, the main effect, the lipids improving, you can't feel that one either. So none of how this works, if it's working, and its side effects are something you can acutely feel. You don't get dizzy, you don't get lightheaded, you don't get energized, you don't get tired, nothing. I mean, besides the niacin flush, which is obvious, it flushes and it goes away. But oddly, the one you can feel is the one that's like not dangerous.
Exactly. Yeah.
So anyways, the point is, it has serious effects. There were serious things going in the wrong direction, and I couldn't feel them. And if I didn't bother testing, who knows how long I could have gone, causing liver damage and increasing insulin resistance. And to kind of finish it, if I only tested the main effect, the lipids, it looked great. My lipids were as good, the best they've ever looked.
Interesting.
It was doing exactly what I wanted, but it was causing even more trouble, and it's likely not worth even using it.
I'm really curious about the idea of, let's say I just start taking a multivitamin, happens to be really high in niacin, just for whatever reason. And then 4 to 5 months later, I go for an annual checkup, get my blood glucose done, and they're like, you're pre-diabetic. I wouldn't think to go back and look at my niacin totals from my multivitamins, right? So you can almost get these spurious results. And then what if I was started to be medicated with metformin, et cetera, for my pre-diabetes? Now I'm taking a pharmaceutical that I didn't have to take because it was just effective in niacin. So that is kind of scary. I think it has a lot to do with what you keep mentioning, high dose, right? So I'd be very probably difficult to do with just a multivitamin or your standard supplements. But it is when you sort of delve into the world of high dose supplementation, this is what you kind of could end up with.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is when I mean, we're talking really high doses. These are gram doses, not milligram doses.
Right.
And most multi-ingredient supplements are not at these type of doses. First of all, you'd have like 12 capsules in your hand. You just wouldn't be able to do it. So when you start doing like high dose, single ingredient, like maximum dosing, is when you're likely going to have to really pay attention to the side effects. And you're going to have to weigh it out. So that's just what I did with my physician. I'm like, what do you think? And he's like, none of these numbers are anything we're going to live with long term. Like
So as dangerous as your LP(a) is, he was far more concerned with your elevated liver enzymes.
He said straight up, I'd rather you have high LP(a) than high liver enzymes.
Yeah. Geez.
Now with that said, he's researching other pharmaceuticals that can target LP(a) directly, and those will be on the market soon. And there's another one I can use. So he knows there's something around the corner we can use. But the point is, you just can't be stressing your liver like that. He was like, I don't like that at all. Like that's we can minimize your other cardiovascular risk factors, knowing you have this one that you can't really do much about. We can at least put effort into the others. There's not much we can do about stressing your liver like this. Like we gotta get you back in order with your liver enzymes. So
interesting. Yeah. So just a valuable lesson there, right? Like if you're delving into the world of high dose supplementation, you really want to do with some sort of measurement protocol in place that's looking at a whole panel, not just the one thing you hope gets fixed. You got to look at everything else too.
Right. Yeah. So that's the takeaway message. If you're going to take a supplement, do the research on what its potential side effects are. And if you can, measure both the main effect, is it even doing what you want it to do? And if you can, measure whatever potential side effects it can produce. And then at that point, if you've got that information, then you can weigh out, is the main effect worth the side effect, or is there something else I need to do to minimize the side effects? And am I just taking one step forward and one step back and adding in more problems and more problems? So again, it's not just because things are supplements and you can go buy them without a doctor telling you to, it doesn't mean you should just take the maximum dose of everything because, oh, this one's good for blood sugar, this one's good for your liver, this one's good for your lipids. Like you can start causing a lot of trouble again in the high dose when we're talking about taking individual supplements at very high doses for very potent effects.
And it's really interesting because you would be 100% accurate to say the high dose niacin was beneficial for your blood lipids. That was a true statement. And then at the same time, you could say it was devastating for your liver enzymes at the exact same time.
And not good for my blood sugar control.
And that's a whole other mess. Yeah. So you're not wrong in saying it did fix the thing you wanted fixed. The problem was the negatives outweighed that one positive.
For now. And we're going to try to find a lower dose that minimizes the side effects, but still fetches us the main effect. But again, that's going to take probably 4 to 6 months to even get to that answer.
Crazy.
So
yeah, good lesson. Though. Good lesson.
Yep. It's just a lesson. Just make sure if you're taking anything, especially the high dose ones, just be aware what the potential side effects are. Take the time to measure it and just make sure you're not causing more harm than good.
Yeah, and if you're interested in any high dose supplements, just email John. He'll take it for you, and then we'll get all the data we need.
Right. And I'll just do an episode on what it did.
Love it. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. So I think that's a good place to leave this one for today.
All righty, man.
All right. So for Brad Peelon, I'm John Barber, and that's your Phi Life Podcast.